Hey everyone, how's it going? Matthew Bailey Media here, and before I get started, I do want to say Happy New Year by the time this video comes out. And yep, it's the new year, and and as you can tell by the title of this video, it is now time to make my top 15 best movies of 2022. Yep, that's right. For me, I went with 15. Now, I do have 3 honorable mentions, which I will discuss, but like I said, this year was a great year for movies. I mean, heck, just like with last year, even though I saw less movies that last year than I did this year, I saw a total of, I think, over 43 movies or more, and I think I only saw like about 30-ish movies last year, so the fact that I've seen more movies this year says a lot. And I gotta tell you, it does seem like some movies are starting to get back on track. I mean, heck, we still had a bunch of worst movies of the year, as you can see by the video I posted on which movies I put on that list. Now, there were a few that I actually forgot to put on there because I had recently just watched some new ones that I completely forgot to put on there. But, anyways, I'm probably gonna update that later, but for now, I'm going to do my top 15 best movies of the year, and again, before I get into it, I have to give a shout out to a few honorable mentions, and those are Thor, Love and Thunder. Yep, surprised that that's not in the top 15. Lyle Lyle Crocodile, and Hotel Transylvania 4 Transformania. Now, that's supposed to be the last one in the Hotel Transylvania franchise, but who knows? By the way that movie ended, it seems like they may still continue on with different stories. But anyways, now let's get into my top 15 best movies of 2022. So at number 15, as you can honestly, I will say this movie I honestly did not think was going to make my top 15, but after watching it a few times over again, I thought, man, this is a movie that I honestly did not expect to be good this year. It was like one of those most surprising hits to me, and that is Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Yep. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was a Disney Plus original that came out way back in May, and I never watched the original show that came out on TV. I guarantee my friend Matthew Davis Media probably has, because he, just like with Tom and Jerry, those characters of Chip and Dale were close to around the same time, maybe even after Tom and Jerry, but still. Chip and Dale is this movie that's like half animation, half live action, that not only brings a lot of cameos into the mix, but there was one cameo that I tell you I was not expecting them to do this, but it ended up being an okay cameo in my opinion. I mean, I didn't think, after seeing the horror of how it looked in the original film, where the sequel will be featured on this list, but Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was an interesting film. I kind of like how they did it. So many different cameos from multiple different properties, and I just gotta say, the villain of the movie was not what I was expecting, but it ended up being a decent movie, and I gotta say, that deserves to be put on this list. So for number 15, I gotta go with Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. So, for number 14, I gotta go with a film that, again, just like with Chip and Dale, it's been years since this type of property was out, and I didn't think I was gonna enjoy it, but number 14, I gotta go with Hocus Pocus 2. Yep, Hocus Pocus 2 is the sequel to the movie that came out all the way back in 1993. Literally before I was even born, and it stars those iconic Halloween sisters, the Sanderson sisters, from the Salem witch trials in Salem, Massachusetts. And I gotta say, unlike the first movie, this one was not directed by iconic Disney director Kenny Ortega, but it was the person who directed this movie. I thought did an okay job at bringing back a lot of the classic tropes from the first movie. And I will say though that out of all the characters that came back from the first movie, the only one that actually looks like they changed in their looks is Sister Mary, and I forgot the name of the woman who plays her, but because in the original she was a little bit bigger and like chunkier, and I don't want to say the F word, but you know what I mean. She was a lot bigger and looked a lot different in that movie than she did in this movie. But in this movie, because it's been over 29 years since the original came out, she just lost weight. She's the only one that really looks like she changed in her looks. Now, this one also, not only does this serve as a sequel to the original film, but it also serves as like a soft prequel origin story to the Sanderson sisters and why they were even around in the first place. And I kind of liked that about this movie. It was the only movie that just actually did that, where it also explained why the characters were even there, but still took place in present day, and I liked that it did that. Unlike another movie that came out that I wasn't expecting, that being R.I.P.D. 2, that says it's a sequel, but it's actually a full-on prequel. It didn't take place in present day or nothing like that. This one did a much better job at explaining both the origin story of the Sanderson sisters and serve as like a present day story. And I gotta say, I'm really looking forward to seeing if they will do a Hocus Pocus 3, especially with that mid-credits scene. So for number 13, I gotta go with another Tom Holland movie that I honestly didn't think I'd like him in, even though there was a lot of controversy surrounding his casting of the character, and that is Sony's Uncharted. Yep. So the Uncharted is the first legit movie based off of the game series Uncharted, which stars Nathan Drake, played by Tom Holland, and Mark Wahlberg plays, I forgot the name of the other character that's in, I think his name was Sully, but all I know is that Nathan Drake is a character that's portrayed by a young version as a young man in this movie because he's played by Tom Holland. And I gotta say, I thought it was an okay story. I mean, it seemed like they were gonna try to lean into further sequels down the line eventually, but I kinda wanna see where they go with his character. Like I said, Uncharted I thought it was okay, but I still thought it could have had a few improvements, but I still really enjoyed the movie. And like I said, Tom Holland has been on a roll ever since he first got the role of Spider-Man in 2015, when he ended up playing. He was 18 to 19 years old, I think, when he started playing Spider-Man, but he was 14 to 15 years old in the universe. So like I said, Tom Holland has had a great year, both last year and this year with Uncharted, and I can't wait to see where his career takes him next. So for number 13, I gotta go with Uncharted. So for number 12, I gotta go with a movie that, honestly, I didn't think she was gonna appear in anything else. I think the last movie that this person showed up in that I've seen was Herbie Fully Loaded and Freaky Friday. Those were like the only two movies that I've seen her in, and both movies came out like over 10 years ago. And this is Falling for Christmas. Yep. It stars Lindsay Lohan, an actress who I was really surprised at and how well she's done each of her roles. I think the very first role she ever really got her career in was the remake of The Parent Trap, a movie I still think I really like. But I gotta say, she actually did okay in this movie, and she still got it. I mean, when it comes to the amount of, films that she's been in and how she portrays each of her characters. And I gotta say, if Lindsay Lohan continues to act in different films down the line, I really want to see where her career takes her with her acting career. But for number 12, I gotta go with Falling for Christmas. So for number 11, now this almost managed to make the top 10, but in my opinion, it's mainly because of how long the movie was, and as well as how it felt like it honestly felt longer than what it was, and it was kind of dragging on the story of this character, but I still enjoyed it, and that was The Batman. Yep, Robert Pattinson, who we all know as Cedric Diggory from the Harry Potter franchise, and Edward from I think his name is Edward from the Twilight films. Honestly, those are like the only two movies I know him from. But Robert Pattinson, I will say, is a decent actor, and his portrayal of Batman was amazing, I have to admit. Again, the movie's almost a little close to 3 hours long, but it feels longer than that, I tell you. It was like 2 hours and 50-ish minutes, but it felt like it was literally 3 hours and 40 minutes. That's how long it felt to me, but like, heck, it even felt longer than another 3-hour-ish movie that I have on this list, which y'all will probably know where that one's gonna end up. But anyways, like I said, The Batman is something I didn't think I was gonna like, but after seeing it, Robert Pattinson does an amazing job as Batman. And Matt Reeves as the director, good choice. And I'm really hoping that so from what I heard, his version of Robert Pattinson's Batman is going to be separate from the new DC universe that we're going to be getting by James Gunn and Peter Safran, which hopefully will fully start to take effect starting in 2024. Now, I'm curious to see how well that goes, but for number 11, I gotta go with The Batman. So, for number 10, this is not the only animated movie that ended up in my top 10 movies, but I gotta say, I loved the way they did this version of a iconic Pixar property more than what I saw in Lightyear, and that is Turning Red. Yep, Turning Red is the Pixar movie that came out prior to the Lightyear, and unlike Lightyear, did not get released in theaters. It went straight to Disney Plus, which, if I'm gonna be honest, I really wish they had switched the two, where they released Turning Red in theaters and Lightyear on Disney Plus, because I guarantee you that format would have worked a lot better, and they probably would have made more money with Turning Red than they did Lightyear, because the way they told this story was amazing. I mean, literally, it revolves around a young girl named Maylin Lee who just turned 13, but she inherited a gene from her mom where whenever she gets too emotional, she poops into a giant red panda and it sometimes has trouble with their emotions. And I gotta say, this is kind of also telling a story of young girls and how they grow up. I mean, heck, I have a young sister who's gonna be turning 16 soon in the month of March of 2023, and when she was 13, I can definitely say she was going through some stuff, but not as bad as what Maylin Lee was going through in this movie, but I still really enjoyed this film. This is like one of the better animated films of the year. But I still have 2 other animated films on this list that were better than this one. But again, I highly recommend seeing Turning Red on Disney Plus for those of you who haven't had a chance to see it. So for number 10, I gotta go with Turning Red. So for number 9, I have to go with a movie that, honestly, I was really surprised at how well the first one did, in my opinion. And with this one, it surpassed the original, in my opinion, and that is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Yep, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is the second installment of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise that has now been made. And funny enough, the first movie literally came out 1 month before the pandemic first hit theaters, and even with that scenario, this movie managed to surpass the first movie's box office worldwide and by like over $100 million. And I gotta say, I'm really surprised at how well this movie ended up doing. Now, the only thing I'm still skeptical about in regards to this movie is whether or not Jim Carrey will return to the third installment. I know there are rumors that he's going to be considering retiring from acting, but if you look back at all the movies he's ever been a part of, this series, along with Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura, I think those are like the only two franchises other than this one that he's been in 2 films altogether, and he's never once done a third installment to anything. Not even. But if he came back for the third installment at least once more for the third installment, this would be the first time in cinematic history for Jim Carrey that he has come back for a third installment. Because again, this movie did better than the original in my opinion. And I'm really excited for when Shadow the Hedgehog gets featured in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. But for now, number 9, I gotta go with Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So, for my number 8 spot, now, to be fair, I did end up seeing more than just this specific horror film that came out this year. But because this is the only one I actually saw right around the time it came out, and when it came to me making this list, I decided to have this be my favorite horror film of the year, and that is Scream 5, otherwise known as Scream 2022. Now, I gotta say, I was someone who really wasn't aware of the Scream franchise. It wasn't until I started seeing the trailers for it, and I thought, I wonder what's going on with these other films, and if there's any other films related to this. So I looked it up, and it turns out there were other Scream movies that came out, and the first one being all the way back in 1996, 2 years before I was even born. So that's pretty crazy when you think about it. And again, the main 3 legendary characters that showed up in this movie were Neve Campbell, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox. Courtney Cox, who I've seen in other movies in the past, most specifically the only movie I've seen her in other than the Scream movies was the movie Zoom with Tim Allen. That's really the only other movie I know her from, but I gotta say, Scream 2022 was a blast, and heck, when I found out that Matthew Lillard, the voice of Shaggy Rogers himself from Scooby-Doo, was in the very first Scream movie, I was like, wow, how did I miss this franchise? And plus, this is one of those horror movies that I'm not too scared of. And I gotta admit, there is one horror movie that's coming out during the month of January in 2023 that I might decide to actually end up seeing besides Scream 6. Something I never thought I would do, but if y'all can guess what that is, let me know in the comment section below. But for number 8, I gotta go with Scream 5. So for number 7, this is one, again, just like with one of these movies being an honorable mention on this list, this is one of the movies I actually preferred out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as one of the better films, and that is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Yep, this was the very first movie, as a matter of fact, to come out from the Marvel Cinematic Universe this year, and it came out right around the same time that Top Gun Maverick did, and I gotta tell you, just like especially on the heels of Spider-Man No Way Home, which in my opinion is definitely the best Spider-Man movie, live-action Spider-Man movie to date, this, in my opinion, was a much better, upgrade from the last Doctor Strange movie that came out, and the fact that it was directed by the original Spider-Man director, Sam Raimi, made it even more better. Now, there were a few faults in this movie that I didn't really like, but I still thought it was an enjoyable experience, especially with this new saga of films of Marvel known as the Multiverse saga, and this literally has the phrase multiverse in the title. I'm really excited to see what the future of Marvel holds, especially with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania being the first entry of Phase 5, and I'm really curious to see if Phase 5 will be a huge improvement from Phase 4, which I know some people I know in my both family and friend group will agree with me on that. But for number 7, I gotta go with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So for number 6, before I get to my top 5, number 6 is a movie that honestly I had a hard time choosing between this and another movie that has similar casting, whatever, and storytelling, and I gotta admit I had to choose this one, and that is The Woman King. Yeah, so it was between this and the movie Till that would have ended up at number 6, but I had to go with The Woman King. I thought this was a lot better story than Till was. I wasn't really as engaged in Till as I was The Woman King, but I still found both of them really enjoyable. This one, if I had to do it, this one, both movies would probably be tied at this number, but I'm going to put Woman King in this slot because, again, Viola Davis is one of those people I honestly wasn't expecting as a great actress when it comes to the roles she's been in. Like I said, she's been in a lot of other films. Like, apparently she plays a character in the DC universe that I'm hoping will continue with her character. If not, we'll see what James Gunn decides to do. But this is a decent true story movie that I've come to enjoy watching. I mean, again, most of the time I rarely go to see true story movies. The only other true story movies I've ever seen in the past that I've really enjoyed were Dolphin Tale 1 and 2, Harriet from 2019, The Blind Side. These are just to name a few that I've really enjoyed that are based on true stories. And I gotta say, this was one of those movies that fell into the same category as some of my favorite true story movies. And again, I'm really excited to see what the future of Viola Davis will be, but for number 6, I gotta go with The Woman King. So, now that we're in my top 5, for number 5, I gotta go with my second best animated film of the year. Now, honestly, this would have ended up my favorite animated film had I not seen the other one, but for number 5, I gotta go with The Bad Guys. Yeah, DreamWorks has really outdone themselves with when it comes to making way better films for DreamWorks than they did. I will say though that last year DreamWorks was not a great year for DreamWorks when it comes to some of their films. I think they released what did they release? I think they released The Boss Baby Family Business was a DreamWorks movie that came out last year, and I don't know. Was there another DreamWorks movie? I can't remember. If there was and also Spirit Untamed. That was another DreamWorks movie I almost forgot about. That was not a great year for DreamWorks, but this year they really started to shoot back up from how well they did in 2019. Because every movie that came out for DreamWorks after 2019 was not so great. Like I said, Trolls World Tour, Spirit Untamed, Boss Baby Family Business. These are all just examples of movies that came out in the last year and a half, 2 years that were not as good. But Bad Guys, great cast voicing the characters, and the story was great. Animation was good, but not as good as the other animated film that's on this list, which I will get to in a minute. So for number 4, I gotta go with my favorite animated film of the year. And again, if it hadn't been for me seeing this movie, Bad Guys would have ended up as that number 1 film. But for number 4, I gotta go with Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish. DreamWorks is really starting to find their footing again. I gotta tell you, the story and the way the characters evolved in this movie was amazing. I mean, I honestly could not believe how well the story and the animation. I feel like the animation was taken straight out of what happened in The Bad Guys with their animation, and I tell you, it was good animation. I mean, they really are starting to get back on track with some of their most popular franchises that were made by DreamWorks, like the Shrek franchise, and it seems like they are still going to try to continue on with a Shrek 5, which will not only be a soft reboot to the franchise, but hopefully they bring back some of the original cast, and I'm really hoping that this will be a solid send-off to the franchise with Shrek 5 as well. Because I really don't think that the actors who play the characters will be able to live much longer, especially Antonio Banderas himself as Puss in Boots, and also Eddie Murphy. Those are the two that I'm mainly worried about when it comes to voicing their iconic characters of Donkey and Puss in Boots. And I'm really hoping that Shrek 5 does happen, and I will do a review of it whenever it finally comes out. But for number 4, I gotta go with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. So now we are at my top 3 favorite films of the year. And at number 3, I gotta go with the other known Marvel movie that has recently come out this year. And no, it's not freaking Morbius. Yeah, you already know that ended up on my worst films of the year list. No, for number 3, I gotta go with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Yeah, it's funny how the last movie of Phase 4, as well as the last movie that came out for Marvel this year, ended up as my favorite film of 2022, at number 3 at least. And I gotta tell you, I did not think they were going to be able to pull off telling a great story of Black Panther, especially without their iconic actor Chadwick Boseman. May he rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But I gotta tell you, the way they told this story was phenomenal. It definitely sets the stage for like future conflicts. It sounds like Black Panther: Wakanda Forever's story, one of the subplots in the film, ties into another film that's coming out in Phase 5, which is Captain America 4: New World Order, as well as the Thunderbolts, which I'm really looking forward to both those films eventually, but those don't come out until 2024, so don't expect my reviews for them until then. But with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, they did a good job at not only addressing the whole Chadwick Boseman's both character passing and real life passing of the character, and this is one of the characters they could not recast because of how well the actor played him. But I'm really excited for when Phase 5 starts, and like I said, depending on how well the Marvel movies of next year end up being, I'm gonna let y'all know. But for now, I have to go with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever as number 3. So for number 2, again, this is probably a movie that I wasn't expecting to see, and again, if I hadn't seen it, Black Panther would have been my number 2 spot. But for number 2, I gotta go with Top Gun Maverick. Yep, Top Gun Maverick is my number 2. And I gotta admit, this is one of those films that I honestly did not expect to not only be a huge hit to me, but a huge hit at the box office. I tell you, the movie was the first movie to ever get across the $1 billion mark and surpass its original movie. And I tell you, I was surprised as heck on how well this story was told. And I will say this is actually one of Miles Teller's better films as well, because we all know that a lot of the films Miles Teller has been in the last few years have not been good. Like I said, he was in 2015's Fantastic Four, which was a big flop. He was in a few other movies that I honestly can't remember. He was in the Divergent series, which his character in the third movie was not that great in 2016. But, I mean, this is one of those films that he actually did really well in, and I can't wait to see what the next project Miles Teller becomes a part of will be. But for number 2, Top Gun Maverick was an easy choice. Now, as for my number 1 spot, if y'all haven't already guessed it yet, what my number 1 spot will be, well, let me just get into it right now. This is my number 1 pick for 2022. And finally, my number 1 favorite film of 2022. You guys probably have guessed it by now. My favorite movie of this year, or 2022, has to be Avatar: The Way of Water. Yeah, I gotta say, I was thrilled at how well this movie ended up being. I mean, now one thing I will say is there are some people, one in particular person on YouTube that I recently started seeing make videos that, and I don't know whether or not he likes anything that's phenomenal in both visuals and story, because, and that, if y'all don't know who this guy is on YouTube, let me know, but he is known as Logan's Cinematic Universe. He's a guy who I recently saw his review of Avatar 2, and I gotta tell you, what the heck is this guy saying? I mean, sure, the visuals are great, yes, but I still think there are some story elements that I thought were great. I mean, heck, some people are saying that this one is actually better than the first one. One woman in particular I recently heard hated the first one but thought this movie was a huge improvement, even especially with story, was Grace Randolph, otherwise known as Beyond the Trailer on YouTube. Check her out as well. I've started watching her recently. She's the one who I find out about movie maths, like how box office is doing for most movies. And Avatar: The Way of Water is so close to surpassing Top Gun Maverick's numbers at 1.4 billion. And if it manages to get to 2 billion, I wouldn't be surprised, even though some people were contemplating that it wasn't going to hit that number. But I gotta say, Avatar: The Way of Water was, just like Spider-Man No Way Home, was a great way to end the year. And I'm really excited for the future of 2023. So there you have it, guys. That is my list for the top 15 best movies of 2022. And like I said, this will probably be after New Year's by the time y'all see this video. But I gotta tell you, I was so glad that I got to see so many movies this year. Heck, I think I even saw more movies this year than I did last year, and I gotta say, I am really excited for a lot of the movies coming out in 2023. I might do a most anticipated movies list of 2023 video next. Maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but anyways, that is all for now in this video, and I will see all you guys in the next video.